Good morning, and welcome to a windy, chilly, cold Djuma. It is completely different to what we had yesterday. You can see the trees are being blown about all over the place. It's still dark, it's still dingy, but it still promises to be a wonderful morning. My name is Tristan, and on camera today I have got Senzo. There we go. It's the typical Senzo 3 fingers. Now this is a live safari, and that means that you can all get hold of us and ask as many questions as you like, and you can do that via hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or the YouTube chat should you want to get hold of us. Right, now the plan was to go towards Tundi's den first thing this morning, but it is completely dark, and it's still way too dark to be anywhere near the den at the moment. We won't be putting any lights in that area and attracting any more attention than than is necessary, and so I'm just doing a loop around now just to try and wait until there's a little bit more light. There's some low cloud cover, so it'll probably take a little longer than normal, but that's the plan, is to try and head towards Tundi's den and see if she is back and out, and hopefully the little one will be playing about like it has been over the past few days. I'm desperate to see that little one out and about and on that log. It seems like such a beautiful den site, but what is interesting is that I believe there was a hyena there yesterday, so I wonder if Tundi's going to start thinking about moving it. It seems as though this is what happens, is that every time I get back from leave, she decides that it's time to change den sites, so hopefully that won't have triggered her to move anything. It's also going to be quite tough to find her if she has, because after that rain the roads are really very hard, and in this light it's going to be quite difficult to actually see any tracks, should there be any. Now I do apologize also if there are little spots that you might see on the lens there. Every now and then there's a little bit of rain that comes through. It's nothing major at the moment, it's more just sort of a misty kind of feel to it. So if there is a spot every now and then on the lens and you see Senzo wiping, that is the reason for it. It's just because of a bit of rain as well. So it's completely different conditions to what we had yesterday. Yesterday we had, you know, searing heat and it was very warm, and now we've got a situation where it is all cloudy and cold and windy, so it'll be interesting to see how the animals react to all of that. Now I'm not the only one out here this morning. There is another member that has recently joined us that is up for his first drive. Well, he's sort of arrived in the Safari Live family, so I hope that you'll all be very nice to him and that you'll ask lots of questions and keep him well entertained throughout the day. So without further ado, let's go across to Steve so he can say good morning to all of you.
Good morning and welcome once again. From me, my name is Steve Falkenbridge, and on camera we've got VM. Hi folks, how are you doing this morning? 2nd of January 2018. Can you believe it? The contrast between yesterday and today is unbelievable. We are wearing jackets, there's imminent rain on the horizon, and we are in the Sabi sands. So welcome to 2nd of January, as I said before. I believe Tristan's out there looking for Tundi, possibly going to a den site. We're going to make a plan, see if we can pick up on the cubs, the sticks pride from yesterday, see if we can do that. It is quite a different morning with the weather like this. It is still quite dark, so it's quite difficult to see any tracks on the road, so we're going just very slowly along, see if we can pick up any signs of them from yesterday. So that is the objective. We're going to keep going, so come with us this morning, and please, if you have any questions, feel free to send it through the hashtag Twitter at Safari Live or via YouTube, and we'll get back to you on that. Let's go. So I drove in yesterday from Hoedspruit. Thank you everybody, morning. Drove through from Hoedspruit. It was very, very hot, very humid. The temperatures were, I don't even know, I think high 30s, but today, what a contrast, what a contrast. We are out in this wilderness, and that's what we love about the savannah. The contrasts, the difference you can have from day to day in the summer months can be quite phenomenal. The birds are only starting to chirp slightly now. The woodland kingfishers have been awake for about 20 minutes. Windy and blustery like this, animals don't do too much movement. They are still trying to hide away from the elements and from potential danger. We passed some impala and wildebeest earlier, and they were just relaxing in the open area, trying to sort of hide away from any large predators that might be moving, because as we know, the predators love moving on windy days, masking their approach. So we need to keep our eyes very, very wide open for potential of a potential lion or leopard moving along. As you know, the Sabi Sands is renowned for its incredible cat viewing, and we are going to do our best this morning on the 2nd of January. Cannot believe 2018 already. Do our best to show you some wonderful action. Good morning, Lady Starfire. Thanks very much for the question. Do I have a Twitter account? That is a negative. I have maintained to stay off Twitter for the last however many years it's been available, and I think the first time I even saw a Twitter screen was when I was sitting in FC about a month ago for my interview. So no, but who knows? Who knows where this will go? Wonderful morning, VM. Okay, so folks, it is still quite dark. There is not much to see at the moment. It's very hard to even see any tracks on the road. We are doing our best. We're moving into the area where I think Tristan had those cubs last night of the Styx Pride, and we're going to do our best to see if we can pick up on their location. As we drive along, it's important when you're looking for animals in the bush to not look at the bush itself, but to look through and past the gaps. I'm still obviously very new to the area, but I remember working with trackers back in the past that weren't exactly looking for animals. They're looking for differences in the vegetation or in the area that they know so well. They would drive past areas all the time, and they didn't actually see the animal. They saw a slight deviation in the outline of a particular bush or a rock, and even at speed they could stop you and they would know that it was a leopard. Once I was with the tracker, ex-tracker from the Singita days. His name was Glass Marimani, probably one of the best trackers and eyes I've ever seen in the bush. And we would be driving along probably about twice as fast as I was traveling now, because we were on our way home on one of those warm mornings when the sun was baking down and the guests were needing some breakfast and coffee. And Glass stopped me, and we reversed back and we reversed forward and reversed back, and he pointed to a cliff up on the top, probably about 50 meters up, and he'd seen a leopard paw on the edge of that cliff. And lo and behold, with binoculars, probably after about 7 or 8 minutes of myself and the guests looking, we were able to see that cat that he'd seen from a moving vehicle. So absolutely phenomenal ability those gentlemen have, and I always take my hats off to the trackers we worked with in the past and the ones I will probably work with in future. So folks, we're going to keep going along here, see if we can pick up on anything. The light is starting to get a little bit better. VM's going to be keeping his eyes peeled as well as I am. Let's move across to Tristan and see if he's possibly found anything of interest for you this morning. Enjoy, we'll see you back soon.
Well, no, not just yet. Steve, I'm still making my way slowly towards where Tandy's den is, just getting down into the drainage line. It's starting to get light enough that we should be able to make out any figures. Oh, if we don't stall the car, we should be able to make out any figures should she be around and should she be here in this light. So it's now starting to get light enough that we can actually see what's going on without our use of spotlights and headlights and various other things. And so just ambling in slowly, and I always like just driving in here, irrespective of whether we find or not. It's just a really pretty area as you kind of go through the riverbed system. And you get kind of towards this area, and then you go up onto the drainage, and there's beautiful trees and just kind of a little riverbed that flows. So I always enjoy actually just coming through here and just having a look at what's going on. Now, I haven't been to this den site since before Christmas, and so when I was last here, the den was this tree, I mean underneath the tree just in front of me, but I believe it's moved a little bit to a fallen over tree, which I think is that one over there. That's what I'm guessing, given this is where all the vehicles seem to be going. I know Senzo might know exactly where it is, so that will help us be able to figure out what's happening. I just want to double check if we don't drive too close towards Tandy. If she is around, it's always good just to double check she's not lying somewhere here. Why is Rusty stalling so much this morning? Rusty seems as though it doesn't want to just go just yet. It's a little cold for Rusty this morning. So Rusty keeps giving me a little bit of a stalling. That's okay, we'll figure it out eventually. Now Sens, is she using the one on the right hand side? Not anymore. This side? Right side. Right side, okay. There we go. So we're just trying to work out exactly where she is. But it seems as though the 2-track goes this way, so that should be able to help us. But it is still quite dark. I think it'll be quite difficult if that little cub comes out. It's going to be quite tough to actually see it. What I might do is come back a little bit later, even if it is here, because it's still quite dingy, and I don't know if the cameras are actually going to be able to pick up anything in this light at all. So we'll just try our very best. Down this side, Sens. Down here. Cool. So just double checking with Sens, just making sure I'm going in the right direction, but I thought it might be here. There we go. That's nice and easy to get into. This is nice when the dens are in easy to access places. Now I believe a lot of you are commenting on the fact that I have lost a large sort of majority of my hair while I was away, which, yes, it's nice to have had a haircut. I'm feeling far better about life, if I'm honest. It's that long hair is just, I don't know how Brent does it. It gets in the way, it's hot, it's not very pleasant, so I'm quite enjoying the fact that it's a bit more breezy around the ears over the last little bit. So thank you to all of you that have commented and have said some nice things about it. Now it doesn't seem like Tundi's here. From what I can see, there's no real sort of sign of anything. That's apparently the tree that she's been using, so I don't know if the little one is around or if Tundi is around. It's very dark still. You can see the camera's battling a little bit, so I don't know if we're going to stick around here too much. I think maybe we'll come back a little bit later. Maybe Tundi's off hunting. I wouldn't be surprised if she is, given that where we are at this sort of time of the day and what's happened during the night is that it's become very cloudy and windy, and these are optimal conditions for any leopard to be hunting, let alone a leopard that is trying to feed, well, herself and to provide nutrients for a little one. So I would think she'd probably be maybe somewhere else, but I'll just want to quickly scan around and just have a little look for 2 minutes, and while we do that, let's go back across to Steve and see if he's having more luck than I am with his search for those young little lions.
Good morning and welcome back once again. I think the luck of the cats was done yesterday, and we're going to have to work a lot harder this morning to spot those spotted cats. Still, as of yet, no luck. We are kind of in the vicinity of the Styx Pride cubs of yesterday, but still the light's not too great, and the ground, looking at the ground, not seeing too many signs in the way of tracks of cats moving around, but we're going to keep going along. It's wonderful to be out this morning with such a nice cool breeze. And we're going to head on right up here, VM. Yeah. Cool. So folks, I'm just having a bit of assistance from VM with regards to the roads. It'll take me a little bit of time just to get my head around it all, and obviously we want to be able to maximize the potential of finding game, and VM is a lot more experienced in the ways of this road layout, so give me a couple of days, I suppose, and I'll start wrapping my head around it. But for now, just enjoying the smells. Beautiful, beautiful. Still a nice breeze. Chris, you asked a question about what's my favorite animal to see, and that would have to be the honey badger. Very aggressive and full of attitude. I know I heard James say yesterday he doesn't like to use the word aggressive, but I think a honey badger is aggressive. They basically will just charge at anything. I have been viewing lions, probably about 24 of them was the mountain pride from my Singita Lubombo days, and they were lying flat in sort of a semi-open clearing, and we were watching them, enjoying, I guess we're taking their photos, but it was, you know, when lions are sleeping it starts to lose a little bit of that element of excitement, and all of a sudden a honey badger came bursting in through the back of the pride, unaware the pride was lying there. To the movement of the honey badger, they all jumped up and they all postured in a way of being, maybe we should eat this thing, and the honey badger turned into full aggression mode and just started growling and spitting and snarling and charging anything in its way, and the lions practically just did a sidestep and moved out the way, allowing the honey badger to pass. So that for me was probably one of the nicest or coolest sightings I've had with regards to honey badger. But they are always special to see. They are never moving slowly. They are constantly moving, constantly in search of food, and I just love their attitude. I love their behavior. I love their aggression. Everything about them. We should head on right here, straight. Okay, we're starting to see the road, starting to see some life on the road, but nothing as of yet, folks. We'll continue. Just kind of doubling back on the way we came through. Maybe we'll get a visual of something moving or lying up in the grass. But very important, keep the eyes peeled. It's one of those things of being a guide that you learn, is the multitasking ability of being able to see left, right, and everywhere, while at the same time still managing to talk. So it's definitely an acquired skill. It's not something many people are able to do off the bat, and I know with a lot of the training I did, a lot of the students that I took through guide training all thought it was very easy until they sat in the hot seat and were having to drive. And I know for a lot of the Americans out there, they are not very good at driving a stick shift. And we did have a lot of American students that would come through, and advice was given that they learn how to drive stick, but it's very difficult to learn how to drive stick, guide, and look for animals at the same time while being professional. So that takes a lot of practice, but that's what you need to do. Maybe you see someone doing this kind of work, they've probably been doing it for quite some time. We had some rain, I think 2 days before, which is always quite nice for this time of year because it settles all the dust that winter and the dry season puts up. It settles it, it makes the beautiful blue skies. Yesterday we had a beautiful blue sky and no dust. I remember on my last drive in, I think it was in November, there hadn't been much rain and the road was very dusty and very uncomfortable to drive. And yesterday, far more comfortable, far less dirty for the car, which is nice. So we continue here, folks. We continue with our effort. We are on safari after all, and if those of you who are aware of the meaning of safari, there's a couple slightly different definitions, but it basically means to go in search of large animals in an adventure under open skies. So that's what we are doing. The skies are open apart from some clouds. We are on an adventure, and you are with us in the front seat. Okay, so the only animals we've seen this morning were some impala and some wildebeest in the open clearing on our way out from camp. It was a bit too dark at the time to put a camera on them, but as I said, it is quite windy, and when it's windy like this, you won't find your herbivore animals moving. What have we got there? I have a bird, Vim. I don't know if you can catch him on there. There's two of them. See if there are any birders out there you can pick up on quite a brief visual. Oh, I didn't get it. One of the things of being a guide is if you are not sure, you need to say, I'm not sure. Don't make it up, because someone on the vehicle will have binoculars and will be a birder and will tell you, oh, that was not what you said it was, and then your reputation goes down. So it's probably one of the most important elements or aspects of being a guide is to admit the fact you don't know. Obviously you need to learn and you need to figure out things as you go along, but if you don't see it clearly with binoculars, it's best to not guess. But it looked like a small falcon of sorts, but I could not get a good visual of the color. So we carry on. Laura Moore, they asked a question, am I familiar with the animals? I'm not too familiar. On my interview, I was very fortunate to encounter Tingana, and then Hosana, his son, joined him for a little drink and a little bit of entertainment, which I thought was really, really good. I've never quite seen anything like that before, and that would be it for me. I haven't seen an elephant here myself personally, but I did do some work in the Singita property of Sabi Sands quite a few years ago, but obviously that is a little bit far away and it's not the same animals down there. But but I do have some information from James on the leopards and the lions and on the family structures, and those are things I'm going to be studying quite well so that we have the right information to talk about. But I know most of you folks out there watching identify these animals immediately on seeing them. I remember Husana being identified within moments of me spotting him the last time, and I think that's quite impressive that people are able to identify cats so quickly. So folks, we still don't seem to have any tracks at all at the moment, but we can see the road, but with the light being no light like this, it is very difficult tracking in quite bad light conditions. So we're just going to keep moving along, see if we can come across any signs, visual signs of animals. We are also listening at the same time. There's quite often alarm calls, and calling of certain animals gives away their position as well. So you need to engage all the senses. And a comment from David that he wasn't able to identify the bird, and 100% correct, David, it was definitely not an ostrich. First of all, ostriches don't fly, and second of all, it was just a little too small. But I would say it was a kestrel or a falcon, but that's about as far as I'm willing to surmise as we go at the moment. But it's always important to get your binoculars on the bird, identify the colors. So folks, we're going to keep our eyes open, we're going to keep our ears open, we're going to keep our hearts open to the wonders of the bush this morning. We're going to be sending you back to Tristan real quick, who is still searching. Enjoy, we'll catch up with you shortly.
I am indeed, Steve. I'm still searching, but at this stage I have had very little luck, and so I'm trying to also keep my heart and eyes and everything else that is open, like you say, and hope that we will also get lucky with some sort of sign of this leopard. Now, I think, like I was saying just now, is that in all likelihood, given the conditions that we've got, is that she's probably out somewhere trying to gain food or trying to find a food item, or maybe she has been and has been successful and is there just feeding, and then we'll come back to the cub a little bit later. So I think what we should do is carry on with our morning and then just come back in maybe an hour or so's time and just have a little look at the den and see if maybe she is home. I didn't find any sign. There was some tracks for her leading away from what looked like leading away from the den, going up towards Gari Dam area. It's difficult to say though, because there's a number of obviously tracks from her moving around in that area. So it looks like she has gone up northwards in the drainage line, so I'll try and just go around and check quickly on sort of central that area, see if maybe her tracks pop out anywhere on that side, or if she indeed has just gone in a different direction. So that's the kind of plan at the moment. It still is very gloomy, and so it's better, I would imagine, to just try and give it a little bit more time as well before we go bashing around through all of those places and have a little look. Now, I believe at some point recently she had a kill somewhere in this area, or there was a leopard kill somewhere in that area, in this area, and so I don't think there's anything left of it, but it's worth just coming back around this section. Senzo was telling me that it was in this tree on our left hand side, and then she dragged it further down to the right, but I'm not sure if she's gonna have anything left of that particular kill itself. It also is down in this section is incredibly dense and incredibly thick, and it's not easy to negotiate at all. So I'm not 100% sure she'll still be there. We might go and have a little look later if we get a bit desperate. Maybe we'll go and check down to where she dragged that kill, and maybe she's still got a bit there and went back for it. But it's definitely very interesting behavior from her. She keeps dragging these kills closer to where the den site is, which is very strange. Generally, leopards are not ones that take their food back to dens at all. In fact, they try and avoid it as much as possible, and the reason for that is to try and obviously stop things like hyena and various other predators catching a scent and following that scent all the way, particularly if a cub is around. So her behavior and having kills at the den sites and sort of taking kills back towards the den is very unique, and something that I've never really seen in any of the other leopards. I definitely haven't watched any other mothers do what Tundi's been doing over the last little bits, and I don't know if it's because the meals that she's been catching are very, very small and she's confident enough that she can finish it up before anything comes, but it's still a big risk because there's still a scent that is created by carrying that around, and you know, there's obviously a danger element to taking carcasses towards den sites and various other things. So, David, you're wondering if Tundi needs to hunt more often to produce milk. Well, I mean, obviously there is an aspect of milk that, you know, if the mother is basically not eating very well, so her body condition is going to get worse and worse, and it's become harder for her to feed, and therefore, you know, obviously she would then potentially die from it. But the milk itself, funny enough, will come actually from her and won't rely on what she's eating. So she'll still produce nutritious milk even if she's battling to feed, and it's almost like her body cannibalizes itself in order to provide the nutrients needed for that little one to survive. And so even if she doesn't get kills and is not eating very well, her body will still produce the same quality of milk for that little one all the way through. It's just that her condition weakens, and as she weakens, so it becomes harder and harder for her to kind of survive, and therefore, I suppose indirectly it is affecting the cub, and therefore she does need to feed in order to sort of keep the cub alive. So it's not that the milk quality relies on what she's eating, it's more that she just needs to feed to keep her energy up and to keep her strength up to be able to then provide for that little cub, as well as to protect it and make sure that it's safe. So that's the idea. Where in this area, obviously with the rain that we had 2 days ago on New Year's Eve, it meant that there is a lot of water everywhere, and so she can find water anywhere. She doesn't need to come to these bigger dams for it. But while I kind of check around Central and see if there's any sign of anything happening this side, let's go back to Steve, who I think is on with a feathered friend that is rather beautiful.
Okay, and welcome back, folks. We just had a beautiful visual of a lilac-breasted roller. It was sitting perfectly here, waiting for you in the tree with his beautiful plumage. The type of plumage looks like a child has taken crayons and drawn and coloured in a bird. But unfortunately, as what happens with birds, they fly away, and we've lost visual. I'm terribly sorry about that. The light is slightly improving, and we'll just keep going, see if we can pick up much luck that side either, but that's what happens in the bush. You can have an afternoon of absolute wonder and then a morning that is quite quiet, but you just got to keep your hopes up and you got to keep on trying. So we're going to keep going, keep heading forward. It was quite a nice visual of the lilac-breasted roller, but unfortunately the light wasn't great on him or her. It's very hard to identify the male and female. How many of you out there are birders? I'd love to hear some interesting information on numbers for your birders. Michael wants to know if I've got any memorable lion sightings involving cubs. And many years ago I watched a male, unfortunately very sad experience, but a male lion come in and dominate and take over a pride, and then attempted to kill the cubs. The cubs were about 2 years old at the time, so still quite dependent on the mother, but he didn't succeed in killing them, but he succeeded in driving them off and never saw them again. So I don't know if that's very memorable with cubs, but it was quite a scene, because we saw the male coming in. He was full of anger and full of vengeance after beating up one of the pride males, and then he tried to do some damage, but fortunately those cubs moved away, but we never saw them again, which was quite sad. But here we have just stopped a little pan. We can hear the blacksmith lapwings calling in the background. I do see an Egyptian goose there. There's the Egyptian goose. Often found in pairs, male and female, and always associated with water bodies, as we have here. They are primarily grazers, feeding on grass either next to the dam or inside the water itself, feeding on algae and such. But it's not often you see an Egyptian goose on its own. Often the male and female, and they're quite territorial towards their patch of water. There you can see it, busy feeding, and then now we've got beautiful blacksmith lapwing. And if you look on his back, can you see the black markings? It actually looks like a self-portrait of the bird on his back. You can see it quite nicely there. He is so vain, he's got a picture of himself on his back. So blacksmith lapwings used to be the plover family. They've changed the large plovers into lapwings. They've kept the plovers. And these are also quite territorial and aggressive birds. They will lay their eggs just there in a little scrape on the sand, very camouflaged. And then the male and female will take pairs in incubating those eggs. They walk around the water's edge. They feed on insects. They probably feed on small crustaceans as well. I think that's the primary diet. And beautiful colors. A nice black and white sort of pie. First Lady, I have a question from you about what is my favorite bird. It's quite hard to give you a number or an individual bird, but probably one of the most attractive birds out there is the Narina trogon. And if you've never seen one of those before, I can quickly show you on my bird app. It's probably one of the prettiest birds out there. It's a forest species and quite difficult to find. So I'll just put the photo on the front here for you. If you can have a look at that, that is beautiful, beautiful male Narina trogon. And look at those colors, absolutely sensational. I've seen 3 of them in my life, but you have to go to the forest biome to be able to see those. And you see how colorful he is, but he can disappear completely. He just turns his back on the approaching predator and that bird is completely gone. Out here in the savannah, I mean, I do like the lilac-breasted rollers. I do like the colorful birds, but probably, let me show you, probably my favorite bushveld species used to be known as the Melba finch, but is now not called a Melba finch. It is called a green-winged Partilia. And I'll show you the coloration on this guy. Here we go once again, VM. The coloration on him is absolutely sensational. I love the colors. Small little finch-like bird, often found feeding in mixed flocks on the floor. They're primarily a seed eater, and you find them with your waxbills and other finches, indigo birds. And this is, all the little birds like this, the waxbills, common waxbill, purple-eared or violet-eared waxbill. Nice, colorful, beautiful birds. I love the small little guys. I just love the way those colors mix in. Other than that, the large raptors. Who doesn't like an eagle? Martial eagle, brown snake eagle, black-chested snake eagle. All very, very important birds for the ecosystem. But it's very hard for me to put my thumb on one and say that this is my favorite bird. I love the feathered kind, and so as we speak about the feathered kind, we're going to keep scanning the water hole here. I see nothing new has arrived. There's lots of dragonflies on the water there. I don't know if you can pick up on that VM. You can see the 2 dragonflies there, semi-attached, and they go down and tap the water. What is actually happening there is that is a male and female that are mating, and as she lays the eggs, he is impregnating, or should I say fertilizing the eggs, which are then laid in the water. Those eggs will then hatch into larvae, and these small larvae live in the water, a very predatory lifestyle, before metamorphosizing into a beautiful butterfly. They come out of the water onto a small stick, and they slowly evolve into something new, forming wings and flying. Very, very important type of strategy, that, because the adult is not competing with the juvenile. You know, it's important to understand that if you're going to compete out in this environment, that if your youngsters are taking away the food and the resources that you have, there's going to be competition and things are going to be difficult. But dragonflies, the juveniles live in the water and the adults live on land, so they have a completely different lifestyle. They're separated in space, and then slowly over time, obviously they can survive that way. Very important for the ecosystem. And when you're looking at water sources, the presence of dragonflies, the presence of the larvae in the water is very, very good for the ecosystem, so quite a good indicator. So we're going to be crossing back over to Tristan, who I think might have a bit of an update for you there. We're going to continue on, see if we can find anything of interest around the water here, but otherwise we're just going to keep on down this road. Hope you have a fantastic morning. We'll catch up with you soon.
Well, so far, Steve, no further updates as to regards to sort of Tundi or anything like that. No sign of her that I can pick up. I've checked along Central, only tracks for a hyena moving in a easterly direction, so not really much else happening. She might have crossed over somewhere where there's a little few hard patches. Also, it's not very good light for tracking at all. In fact, without being sitting on the front like the trackers do from where we're sitting now, it's going to be very difficult to spot any tracks unless they're right on a soft substrate where you can kind of pick up their big footprints in that. So maybe a tough tracking morning, but what I'm doing now is just doing a few loops around. Like I said, I'll head back to the den later. I'm sure she'll be around a little bit later. It's just a matter of being patient. But I heard last night apparently Tingana was also seen somewhere around Central area and moving around, and so I know quarantine was closed. Hosana was on Chitwa line. If Tingana was around, you never know, maybe one of the three of them is also just hanging around this particular section again. So I'm just heading slowly towards Chitwa line and just having a little look, seeing if there's any sign of any of our leopards in this area, and seeing if there's been any developments regarding the males. Now, I just had a brief look here because there's sort of a marking on the road which is not very sort of normal for us. I don't know if we're going to be able to get it. Maybe let me go back a little bit further sends and just get over that bump. But on the right hand side of the road, you'll notice that there is sort of almost, it looks like scuff marks on the right hand side there. Now those are not actually scuff marks at all. That is dribbling urine from a musk bull elephant. So I would imagine this is the same one that maybe James had yesterday afternoon, and the one that was terrorizing the DRC last night, because he was there and breaking branches and making a mess and doing all kinds of things and going a bit crazy and kind of sort of breaking everything. And so maybe he came up this way once he decided he was finished with the camp and has moved in this direction. Now a little bit further on and to the left, even though you can't see the nice big discs, there is a few bits of grass that is on the road itself. You can just see it coming as the road turns there. There's a little bit of grass and that kind of thing from where he fed. So maybe he's around. It'll be nice to catch up with a big bull Ellie. He seems as though he was heavily in musk last night. I bumped into him on my way home after dinner, and he was, like I say, pulling down marula trees and doing all kinds of other nonsense that big bull elephants get up to, and so he was making a rather large mess. And when I came back this morning, there was branches all over the road and big piles of dung, and well, typical of a big elephant being around. So maybe he's somewhere in this area, although the weather is very difficult, well, not great for elephant viewing. And the reason why I say that is because they don't really like the wind, and so when we get a lot of wind like we've got today, as well as cold, then you'll find that they tend to try and get into deep, dense thickets, and so they try and get into places like the Mulawati drainage or little drainage lines that are off on the sides, just to try and get out of that so that they can still hear nicely and see nicely, and their senses aren't too compromised by being out in the open and hearing a lot of, you know, movement of the air. Now I just got an update which I'm sure will interest Steve. So apparently there's tracks for lions all over Gowrie Main and around sort of Little Gowrie driveway area. So if Steve's down on the bottom there, which I think he is, looking for the Styx Pride, then apparently their tracks are all around that area. So maybe Shabamu somewhere there. Lou, if you would like to let him know. I'm not sure if he's on the radio. It's always difficult when you first start here to have our radio plus Game Drive radio plus, you know, trying to think about what you're actually doing, and so sometimes you just turn the radio down. So we'll just try and help Steve out and see if maybe he can head in that direction and get lucky with those lines. I hope that he will. And probably find that the Styx came, because they were at an Arethusa yesterday, probably find they came from there and then they went towards those little cubs, picked them up and then started to move again. And it will be good news, because I believe that those cubs have been there for a few days, and I know some of you are starting to worry a little bit as to their safety. But it does happen like that. Sometimes lions will leave their cubs for a day or two as they go and look around for food and try and just check in sort of their territories and just go and generally do what lions do. And you know, sometimes the cubs do get left behind for a little bit. So they'll be alright, I'm sure. And if the pride is in that area, those little cubs last night were moving, when just after we left them, they started moving west along Gowrie Main, and where those tracks are for lions is pretty much just to the west of where we had them last night. So it's a good area to go and check. Hello Impala. No, you're going to run away now. Yes, he's just going dashing off into the bush. Not ideal. I thought maybe he would stick around for 2 seconds, but it seems as though he's got other places to be and other things to go and see. So we shall not worry about him for now. I'm sure we'll come across another impala at some point. But what I want to do is just check Cheetah Cut Line really nicely. I'm going to go up towards Quarry Pan and then go on to Cheetah Cut Line and then just head south and hope that maybe one of our three boys is around in this area. So Quarantine, Tingana, Hosanna, they're all three of them, like I say, were seen in this area last night, and so we're going to just check if one of them is around. I know Hosanna did get up from where we left him about, I would say it was about 20 minutes after we left him. He was up and moving, and as far as I understood it, he was moving in a westerly direction from the Pan along Gowrie Main, so maybe he's come up onto Leadwood or maybe even the Mulawati system somewhere there. So we'll go and have a little look. There's some kudus, so hopefully these guys will sit still for our first animal of the morning, because it's been a bit dry with both animal and bird. Everything seems to be blown away by this gusty weather that we've got, but you can see kudus are just up ahead and feeding. This is an area that they spend a lot of time in. Whenever we look for kudus, you come up onto Drakensberg, generally you can find them up here. They like this terrain up here and the types of trees that they can feed on. So there's bush willows, and that's one of the things that kudu feed a lot of, and there's a few acacias up here as well, which is also tasty stuff if you're in the kudu world. But that looks like a very pregnant female. You can see her tummy is starting to round out quite heavily at the bottom, and so it's that time of year. We've seen so many young animals lately, and you'll find that the kudus will still start to give birth. They often are a little later in the season than what some of the other animals are. Hello, yes, we're talking about you. Is that not a beautiful animal? Those big white stripes down the side of the body and those massive ears. You can see how alert the animals are though today. Because of this wind, they are compromised heavily in terms of their senses. I was talking about elephants, but these animals are the same. So they can't really hear as well. The scent will be swirling, so picking up a direction through scent is going to be very, very difficult. And they're not going to be able to hear anything. When it's gusts like this, the leaves are constantly rustling, and so you can't really hear when a leopard or lions or anything like that is walking around, and so it's really quite difficult, and they become far more alert and far more aware of their surroundings and skittish, and so you tend to see exactly that. As they look at you like that, check that there's nothing right there, and then they start cutting off into thickets where they can go and try and camouflage as much as possible. Well, I'm going to leave them there. They're going into a tangle of trees. I know, because I followed Tundi through here recently, and it was, well, a tough experience, to be honest. Poor Rusty that day. I think actually I was driving Jigger that day. It got absolutely pounded as we went through these thickets. It was very dense in there. So we'll leave our kudu to themselves and to enjoy their breakfast as they go about, and hopefully they'll have a safe morning. We wouldn't want any of them to be eaten. Well, I suppose if we're going to see a leopard, maybe it's then okay. Right. I wonder if wonder if maybe, just maybe, there's anything around Buffelshoek Dam. Maybe it's worth just checking Buffelshoek Dam as well while we're up on this side of the world. There were 2 of the Birminghams in Buffelshoek yesterday, but it sounds to me like they've gone towards Sydney's Dam side and then south down Triple M. So I know there are some guys working those tracks, and like I say, I mean, Steve is on that mission this morning, so I'm sure he'll go and try and figure out what's going on. But I see our Elephant Bull tracks go down the road here again, so we'll just follow these along. Just trying to work out which way they're going. It's a little difficult to see. They can just see the wrinkling of the toes a little bit. Here's a nice spot to actually see our elephant tracks. Looks like they're going away from us, but there we go. You can see a nice big disc on the tire track itself, so that's where the Ellie has stepped, and it looks like they go in forwards away from us, because there's a smooth section at the back of an elephant's foot that looks as though it's closest to us, and then also there's a little toe that digs in when an elephant walks. So as his foot goes forward, a toe digs in, and there's a little scraping going sort of away from me rather than towards me. So not easy to kind of pick them up, and like I was saying, tracks at the moment are tough because of the light, and also the fact that you know, the ground is so hard after the rain, it makes life a little tough. Now, Bobby, you said, can we also look for baby elephants? Well, yes, we most certainly can. Any herd of elephants or bull elephant would be a wonderful way to start our day. So if there's some babies around, we'll certainly try and find them. I think it's, like I say, it's going to be quite tough for elephants this morning. It's not great weather for them. You often find elephants and buffalo are really tough to find in conditions like this. If it was just overcast and no wind, then no, that would have been quite easy. Actually, elephants quite like that weather, and they would have been out and they would have been quite playful. But when it's very windy and cold, and particularly a change in temperature from that hot weather that we had yesterday to this cool weather today, you find that the Ellies are not huge fans of it, and it becomes quite tough to actually find them over the course of the next couple of days until that wind starts to settle. Once the wind settles, then we'll start seeing them coming out again. But we will try nonetheless. You never know. You can't tell what's around any sort of corner. There could be an elephant herd around this next corner, so we're going to try and see what is around this next corner. And while we do that, I believe Steve and VM are back out and about, and VM, I believe, broke his earpiece but has a new one, and so we'll be beaming like a Cheshire cat. Let's see where they're going to be heading to and what their plans are now that they've got fixed earpieces.
Welcome back, and we continue on our search, on our safari, as we say. And much like most of you folks are snuggled at your homes, probably those of you in America are quite cold and chilly. The animals here are in a similar sort of way. They are hiding. None of them are available so far. They're all relaxing and hiding in the bushes, and it makes a lot of sense. If the only reason you move is to feed and to possibly drink water, and it's quite cool, so you don't need to drink water, there's no need really to move around. So that's why our search so far has not been very successful, but they have had some tracks of the Styx Pride. Seems to be sort of in the south of the property. We're paying attention to the radio there. I know there's some guys working in the area on that, so we'll keep an ear to the ground, and we're exploring another area now, see if we can pick up on tracks or any activity. But so far, apart from the wind and a couple bird calls, it is a very quiet morning. But that's okay, because the smells are wonderful, the sounds are wonderful. It's lovely to just be out here in the bush. It's lovely to be on adventures, and what a hard way to spend your morning. I know James was alluding to the comments that some people are going back to work soon. This is where we work. So Julia, you like to ask a question, is windy weather better for the predators? And that is most certainly yes. Predators obviously are stealth ambush hunters. When we talk about leopards and lions, for example, they like to move around when it's windy because the wind masks the sound of their movement. Just look at a kudu, for example. They've got massive ears, and those ears aren't there to look pretty. They're there to pick up on the smallest of sounds. But unfortunately, when it's windy, it's very hard for a herbivore or a kudu, giraffe, zebra, wildebeest to pick up on the sounds of an animal moving through the long grass. Even the smallest of sounds made by leopard moving can be detected by those big ears. So yes, definitely. I've been with lions, I've been with leopards where they're lying flat on the ground and the wind picks up like it is now, and up they get and they start walking either into the wind or kind of crosswind to pick up on the smell of any animal upwind from them. So yes, they do love the wind. They love it. And when you find an animal in this environment, a prey animal, you'll find they're often standing with their back to the oncoming wind and they're looking in the direction of potential danger, and they look quite nervous. They are shaking and jittering and kind of jumping around, and it's not common to find them on their own. You will find them in large groups because ideally they would be in the middle of their group, so a friend on the outside will potentially be the one who is picked off by the approaching predator. So most definitely wind like this is great for predators, but you know, you just have to find them, and we are doing our absolute best here. Still nothing coming through on the radio, but everyone is out there and everyone is busy doing their thing. I know the Mara team has also just gotten mobile and they're out there trying to find you some animals, so hopefully someone will be able to find you something special quite soon. But it's wonderful just being out here and having you watching us through our adventure. And please feel free, send your questions, send your comments. We're ready and available for them. So being here just a month ago, I think I was here 20th of November, not sure how much rain has fallen, but it is far greener than it was back then. And when it is green like this, there's lots more leaves, lots more grass. It's also harder to see animals because of the density. Any of you been out here in the winter months will know that you can see for half a mile or two because there's no leaves on the trees. But now that summer is back and the rain is here, the trees are all back into their photosynthetic potential, doing their thing, trying to grow and produce sugars and energy, which a lot of them will then store for the winter months. But unfortunately, it makes this time of year quite difficult for viewing animals. Lovely though, in a way, because it's green and there's flowers and there's babies. So for those of you who enjoy baby animals, I know we were watching the wildebeest yesterday and the impalas are in full bloom. Very, very nice time of year for those kind of animals. Leopards and lions breed kind of whenever they want to. There's no set peak season. So coming through to a place like the Sabi Sands in this time of year, you can expect it to be hot. You can expect some days to be a little bit overcast like this, which is quite a nice respite from the heat. But you can also expect it to be very green, lots of bugs and mosquitoes. Hence why we have lots and lots of birds that migrate here from the north, come here from Africa and from Europe. They come here for the insects. I know a lot of you do not come here for the insects, but it is a long way to come. They come here to feed. Some of them will breed, but majority of the birds that do migrate in here from the north have come here primarily for a good feeding. So yeah, I can't say I've ever traveled all the way to Europe to eat a dragonfly, but you know, needs must. So the wind is still quite strong. I wouldn't say very strong, but it's a gentle sort of breeze. Everything is shaking. Everything is moving. I even had to put a little fluffer on my microphone to keep the wind down. But we're going to continue on our quest, folks. I think Tristan is doing something quite similar, so let's throw you back to him and see if he's got anything more interesting, and I will catch up with you shortly, hopefully with some good news.
Well, so far, no, there's not really been too much on Cheetah Cutline. We've seen very little sign of anything. There's just tracks for where Tingana crossed out of Djuma and headed in a easterly direction. I'll get it right eventually, but if he headed east towards Torchwood and into Torchwood itself, I thought maybe, just maybe, we might pick up tracks for Quarantine coming this side, but nothing that I can see so far. I'm just going very slowly along, checking as we go and checking all these big beautiful marulas that we have around this area, as well as some of the nice termite mounds, in the hope that maybe there's a leopard curled up in a tight little ball on one of these mounds. Sometimes you will find them in weather like this. If they're not hunting, then they're kind of down in these little curled balls, and they'll just be lying there trying to stay nice and warm. So that's what we're busy checking for at the moment, is just to see for any signs of that, but nothing really major has been out and about. Our elephant crossed into Torchwood as well, so he's gone that way, and no signs of any herds of ellies around either. So I'm just kind of puzzling as to where I think I'm going to go next. I might do a little turn past Chitwa if we're on Cheetah Cut Line, maybe head in that direction. I'm not sure. We'll just have a little look around and kind of see how things are going to end up going. But I'm sure there must be one of the boys around here. I don't think that all three of them could have left this area, and especially Hosanna. He seems as though he was coming north yesterday, and his kind of attention was to the north, and so I'm hoping that he crossed over somewhere on Gowrie Main, and I'll be able to pick up his tracks around Leadwood or the Firebreak area and then follow them from there. That would be an ideal situation while we wait for Tandi to try and sort of head back towards the den, or to try and at least see if she will go back towards the den later in the drive. Now I'm going to kind of carry on in this area, but I believe that our intrepid explorers of the East African plains have decided to grace us with their presence this morning, and they are up and about, and I believe that they have a far better weather than what we've got this morning, and that's well, I believe that we're not going to go to them because apparently they have got gremlins, and so they are not going to be joining us, and they will be tardy and stay away for a little bit longer. That's okay. No, nothing down there. I thought I had spotted something, but I hadn't. I was getting all excited for a second there, but it was just a termite mound with a little sort of drying dead bush willow next to it, and so it looked quite spotty against this grey gloomy background. So, but not a leopard, that's for sure. It ended up just being a branch in a bush. What do you think, Sens? Chitwa? I think maybe we go to Chitwa Sens. Let's go and have a little look around there. Now I believe while Ralph is struggling with his gremlins, Taylor McCurdy seems to have batted off hers and is available and ready to go, and so I'm sure we're going to head across to her, but we have a rather long delay this morning, and so you just kind of have to keep going for 15 seconds before we can actually send you off to that side. But I'm sure Taylor will have lots of stories from her evening, as well as a beautiful sunrise to show all of you.
Many more morning Mara gremlins today, and I could become the Marshmallow Queen again, which I'm not, which is quite exciting. Right, I will say hello to you properly. I just want to get through this little crossing here. Good morning everybody, and welcome to the Sunrise Safari. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Archie, and we are out driving around in the Masai Mara looking for those cheetah cats, as Scotty D calls them, but we have not found them just yet. They're not in the same spot that we left them last night, and in place we found lots of topi and zebra and gremlins and all sorts of wonderful things. So now we play that hard game of trying to relocate everybody again. So I'm just checking a couple of their favorite spots where I have seen them before within the area that we were yesterday. So I have seen a few cars also driving around searching, so hopefully we will either come across the cheetah or perhaps a vehicle that is stopped looking at the cheetah, and then we will go there. So we've been going in and out through drainage lines and luggers and all sorts of huge. I want to. Now, for those of you who have just joined us, a big welcome. I apologize that I'm not focused on you, but I'm trying to find you 5 cheetah, which is pretty spectacular. So if you'd like to have a chat to us, you can hashtag Safari Live, or you can also talk to us via the YouTube chat. It'd be great to hear from all of you. Now, cheetah cats, where have you gone? There's lots of gardenias up here, and it's one of their favorite trees to mark on. So I'd assume after whatever meal they devoured in the morning would have subsided slightly. I think they still have fairly large bellies this morning, so perhaps they've gone out on a territorial patrol. So that's why it's important that we start checking some of their favorite shrubs that they like to mark up against, and hopefully we'll find them somewhere in the area. But we're not going to give up just yet. The search has just started this morning, so we'll keep on looking, even though it is fairly quiet out here in the Mara. Let's jump on board with Ralph and see if he's managed to find the cheetah he's been looking for.
Good morning everybody and welcome aboard once more here for the morning game drive. We're in Kenya in the Mara Reserve and it's a wonderful cool morning and my name is Ralph Kirsten and we've got Manu on the camera. Hey Manu. Well, we've come out this morning nice and early and we've headed immediately to the spot where we had the scene of the crime yesterday with Hodari, and it seems that he's either moved that young female bushbuck or it's been taken by hyena or lion, but whatever the answer is, he's not there and neither is the kill. So we thought we'd just come and follow up and see if he was still there feeding on it. Maybe he's dragged it further down into the lager and we can't see him, but difficult for us if we can't get out on foot to be able to really track him down. But we'll leave him in peace for now. And it's been a wonderful sunrise. As the moon was setting, we did then start to see the sun coming up, although we've got a little bit of cloud around. There's quite a bit of cloud cover. It's been a very cool morning. I would say probably around 15 degrees centigrade, maybe mid or upper 60s degrees Fahrenheit, maybe lower 70s, but quite a big wind chill factor in the air, so it's quite cool really. We've got all our jackets on, obviously with the wind coming through, but the plan for this morning is we're going to find as much as possible. I think Manu and we're just going to be bumbling around trying to follow our noses and see what's about. We're going to head a little bit away from this particular drainage line and head more in a southerly direction and hopefully pick up on some totally different cheetahs or lions. It was lovely to find Hodari, which seemed is a relatively new character for all the long time viewers, so that was lovely for me. All these cheetah are new characters for me anyhow, so it's exciting all the same. But we've come past quite large herds of zebra and topi with gazelle and wildebeest. It's a little bit empty on this side, but it's really strange because as soon as you think that there's no animals and you start to drive around, all of a sudden there's a spot where there's just massive herds and animals all over the place. And you got to almost try to look between the lines, because I've been sitting here and it seems like these plains are bare, but every now and then there's just a little bit of movement and I look a bit closer and there's lots of warthog running off in one direction and some gazelle moving through on another. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed and we're going to work hard this morning and see what we can find. Very excited. It's nice when it's a little bit cooler, and I believe it's always better for predators when it's cooler. I know that they do walk around and move around when it's hot, but in general I would say the universal rule is the cooler the better for cheetah and for lions and leopard and all of our furry friendly friends. Now we also obviously do like to use the clues of the bush, and one of the clues here, I'm sure you've seen maybe with the other guides as well, obviously if you see 2 or 3 vehicles you know that something's up in that spot. But that was what was so nice about yesterday in finding Hodari. There was nobody around and we found him all on our own, not with having spotted 5 vehicles off in the distance and just racing to that. We sniffed him out on our own and we stayed with him long enough for him to eventually play out an entire kill in front of us, and wow, what a wonderful experience. And we felt like we had worked for that and it was all ours, so everybody else coming to visit our sighting, and I was glad to have you a part of it, because that's the kind of guiding that I like. But we won't pass up any opportunity. I think we've seen some vehicles here in front. We'll always go and see what they've been watching, because if there's some cheetah or action in the area, we don't want to miss it. Right, folks, so we're going to try and find what's around the next corner. While we're doing that, let's send you on all the way down south to the Sabi Sands and Steve. Howdy, Steve.
Hi, Ralph. Be good to see you again, watching you live yesterday. I know Ralph's up in the Masamara for a little stint. Ralph and I actually know each other from 99. We did a little bit of nature conservation studies together. So when I saw him on the interview, it's kind of a bit of a recap. So nice to have him on board and nice to be working with the guy. And you are back with us here in the Sabi Sands, where we also don't have any animals. We have lots of trees and lots of vegetation and lots of wind. But as of yet, there is absolutely nothing on the ground that we have located, and the radio is very, very quiet. It's always one of those interesting times when you're at a lodge and the guides are starting to look and look and look, and then it takes a while, and you can almost hear it in the tone of the voice on the radio when they haven't found anything. They start to get a little bit agitated. In a place like the Sabi Sands, I think animals are quite often so easily found that as soon as it becomes a little bit hard work, the pressure starts to mount. But that's okay. We can handle the pressure, and we're going to keep carrying on this way. We're right up in the northern boundary of Djuma right now. We're going to see if we can find something this side. A lot of the guys are working down in the south, picking up on those tracks. There's been no updates on the radio from that. But let's see what we can find. I always liked finding my own animals, so let's see what we can do. Please send your questions through. I think I made a comment earlier. It'd be nice to know anybody is into birds, their lists might be, and what their favorite birds are. It'd be nice to bring that information forward. Maybe we can even find one of your favorite birds. Tricky though also on a day like this. We did see a tawny eagle just now. Looked like he had quite a full crop and was flying beautifully in the wind. The raptors do quite well in quite windy conditions, but then a lot of your smaller birds also won't be doing too much movement because once again the predatory birds are masked in this wind. So we might just lose a little bit of signal here, folks. We're just going through a little drainage depression. Good morning, Jeanette. I believe you're just now starting your Safari Live bird list. Fantastic. I hope you got that blacksmith lapwing and Egyptian goose before. I don't think you can officially tick the lilac-breasted roller because we didn't see it. But we will keep trying. We will try and build your list up there. There are potentially 400 and something birds that can be seen in the greater Kruger area. I'll double check on the stats of what the Sabi Sands bird list is at, but I know the Kruger Park itself is about 460. So that is quite a good number for the Savannah biome. We will see what we can do for you. Lucy, that is a fantastic number. 314, I think you said, for your Sabi Sands list. That is really, really good work. You must be a viewer for quite some time now, because that is a very good number. Without spending too much active time out here, physically doing it, and just through the guides, I think that's a phenomenal number. Well done, well done. You also said 100 and something for the Masamara. That is, I think, quite a small fraction of what they have up there, but it's still a good start. I probably will be heading up to the Masamara at some point. That's what I've been told, and I can't wait to get my Masamara birding list on its way. The furthest I've been in the continent would be Malawi, and the birding on the Luwande River is unbelievable. If you've ever been to Luwande, the Luwande National Park, there is an amazing amount of birding to be done there. If you like your aquatic birds, absolutely fantastic. So folks, there's still absolutely nothing going on the radio. Guys are all over the place in search of the elusive animals, and we are doing our best. So please stay with us, don't go anywhere. We are going to do our absolute best to find you an amazing sighting, but you know, we're just going to have to work for it, and when we do find it, it is going to be phenomenal. Any other bird lists out there? Any other comments on birds you'd possibly like to see? See if we can talk about them or find them for you. Okay folks, so we are continuing on here. The wind is still blowing. The bird life is very quiet, but I am keeping my ears open. My binoculars are at the ready. And we are going to be crossing to a hyena den. I believe Taylor has got something quite special for us in the Mara.
Well, wish you all the best, Steve, and of course welcome to the Wild Earth team. It's very cool to have you on board, and I look forward to meeting you in a few months' time. Right, guess what we found? A hyena! And I believe it's been exceptionally quiet. This is also the first sign of life we've had all morning, barring the odd Thompson's gazelle sitting in the grass and a topi here and there. But we have quite a few animals around, and everybody is starting to stare at this hyena as it moves through the open area. No one's alarming though. The topi are just sort of watching it. The Thompson's gazelle are keeping an eye out. The zebra actually haven't even taken any notice whatsoever, and they have to, is because these creatures are such good hunters. They are phenomenal. And the other day when I was around the marsh near Little Governor's, there was a herd of impala that were quite blasé. They were very relaxed. They didn't seem to be concentrating all too well. And the next minute, they went stampeding in our direction, and I couldn't work out what had happened. And a hyena actually charged in and tried to grab an impala lamb. It happened all too quickly to catch live, unfortunately. So these animals have to keep an eye out. There are lots of young topi. There's young zebra foals, and a zebra would most certainly... not a zebra, a hyena would most certainly like one of those as a snack. And this one doesn't look overly full either. And she hasn't got a big bulging belly. I suspect it's a male, but I'm not 100% certain. It's a fair distance away from us. Just the fact that it's traveling on its own and it's not massive, could be, it looks fully grown. It doesn't look like a sub-adult to me. There we go, topi just making a bit of a gap. And you see the Thompson's gazelle going through. It's actually incredible how large a topi actually is. And if you look at it with a hyena, and yes, they're a little bit in front, so the size is altered slightly, but they really do dwarf hyenas. They're not small creatures, and I couldn't imagine one running into you. I think it would knock you straight off your feet, if not concuss you. However, a hyena is much larger than a Thompson's gazelle, however. There they are. You can see the size difference. That's always a very nice size comparison when we get shots like this. Here's pricked, looking around, seeing if there's a potential target. I'm sure this hyena would prefer to be able to just scavenge something or come across remains of a carcass. But I'm not sure what he's doing. And they will do that sometimes, like I said. They'll charge into unsuspecting herds if they aren't concentrating and take the opportunity when it's there. Otherwise, maybe he's just sussing things out. What are you doing? Where are your friends? Not uncommon also to see hyenas on their own. It's actually quite common. Yesterday we had a nice sighting of a few, and it was quite funny in the end. Those 3 hyena that we were watching walked quite a distance, and they would stop and they'd pick up the rest of the gang. There would just be hyenas that were scattered all out of that open plain, and the group just got bigger and bigger. Eventually there must have been about 10 or 12 of them all walking towards the sunset. And off it goes. Quickly, Toby, quickly. Oh, the wind is chilly this morning. There's some zebra also coming into frame, so there's lots of animals around here. This would be a perfect spot for the cheetah. But I'm not exactly sure where those cheetah are. So we'll do a couple more loops and laps, and if we don't end up being successful, we'll probably change our plan and look for some lions. Right, Rolf, however, has got not a hyena, but a different type of predator that likes to hunt from the sky.
Thanks, Taylor. Yes, we haven't been able to find Hodari and his kill, but we have managed to find some vultures on a much older looking carcass than just 1 day old. It seems this is at least a few days old. You can almost see by the color of the meat. It's very dark, and it has been exposed to the sun, I believe. So here we've got a leopard-faced, that one with a little bit of red, and he's quite a bit bigger, and that other one on the left is a white-backed vulture. So we've also got another one which now puts it nicely into perspective. There is a hooded vulture. It's obviously also scrounging off a little piece of that carcass that's been dragged a little bit to the side, but he's the smaller of the three, and then it would be the white-backed vulture, and the largest being that of the lappet-faced. So folks, I did omit to mention, please don't forget to join us on the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and on the YouTube live chat. Send us through all your questions and your comments. We'd love for you to be involved in this reality game drive happening right now in the Masai Mara, and the other one down in Djuma in South Africa. It's lovely when we get lots of questions and comments, because we like to have everybody on board with us. We did see a little jackal here as well. He's disappeared off into the plains. He was rather mangy, and he's the first mangy jackal that I've seen here in the Masai Mara. The ones in the triangle have looked in immaculate condition. The coat's shining and looking fantastic. So maybe here on this side where it's a little bit drier, resources are a little bit scarcer, maybe he's taking a bit of strain. Lovely to see that with the vultures cleaning up the carcasses. That's what they're there for. And they fill that role with exemption. I wonder what met its untimely death. And that over there, just from a distance, some kind of ibis. Looks like a hardy dog. Now, Jason, you're wondering if vultures are not prone to getting sick from all the rotten meat that they eat. Jason, not particularly, no. And there comes another white-backed vulture in there. Look at that. Not particularly, Jason. They're actually... Oh, sorry, Jason. I'm going to answer your question now. But that is a lovely sight to see there with that breast. Did you see that it was exposed on the breast as he was running towards us? 2 spots on the breast, and that is used for when they are soaring and looking for the thermals, and they can feel the hot and cold patches on that naked breast. So that's why they have those 2 little spots, and so they know which way to turn. As soon as they get a hot patch on one side, well, they turn that way, because that's where the thermals are, and they are the masters of thermaling. I've done a little bit of paragliding myself, and they teach you that if you can act like a vulture, think like a vulture, you can soar like a vulture. So the vultures are the ones that the paragliders watch, because they are absolutely perfect in the sky when it comes to finding the thermals and the hot zones. So, Jason, you were wondering if they're not prone to getting sick from eating all this rotten meat. Well, Jason, they could be, but they do circumvent that by being extremely cleanly or clean. They very often, after having fed, they'll fly off to the closest water point and go and wash themselves and probably all the bacteria and things around their face away. Obviously, what they ingest, they've got a very adept stomach and acidic components to that will break down all that dangerous new stuff that makes people sick. And vultures are incredible in what they can digest, and they can even digest anthrax, which I have chatted about before, but it's a very big role of vultures, being both vectors and controllers of many different diseases. And the problem with vultures is that they very often get poisoned together as big groups, because as soon as one vulture, or it's normally a bateleur or a smaller eagle that spots the the carcass first comes down, well, they're all spotted from a few miles off quite easily. So everybody within a few miles, and I mean everybody, then I'm saying vultures, they all will come down to a carcass, and if there is poisoning or anything on that carcass, well, it spreads like wildfire within the community of vultures. And so that's why where there are farmers and problem animals, vultures are very quickly the first to get poisoned. Even though farmers might be targeting animals like caracal or jackal, the vultures are very quickly poisoned because of their understanding of how quickly to come down to carcasses and how far off they see it as well. But nice here to see different species interacting together, and you'll also find that they do have slightly different adaptations to feeding on and around the carcass, because these whitebacks, you can see very bare heads. Now, Raya, you're asking the question and wondering how many vulture species there are in the Mara. Well, the three that we have here, we have the African white-backed vulture, the lappet-faced vulture, and the hooded vulture. But we also get the white-headed vulture and the Ruppel's griffin vulture. So there is 5 species of vultures within the Mara, but then you also get the other scavengers that like to join the vultures, and that's the marabou stork and the bateleur, and the other day we even saw that the ground hornbill were preparing themselves to come in on that hippo carcass. So there are other birds that do join in, but aren't particularly known for being the ardent scavengers like these vultures are. But very different head shape as well, and a little bit different on the bills that you'll see with the white-backed, the hooded, and the lappet-faced, because they have better designs for getting in between different areas of the carcass. Now, that relatively large head and bill of the white-backed, so that gives them sort of a mid-range, being able to get into all sorts. With the lappet-faced, a very thick-set bill, and that enables them to be able to rip meat and hide and all of that, whereas the hooded vulture, a lot smaller, he can possibly get in right in between the small little spaces and maybe even into the marrow in the bone and so on. So all the vultures also play their roles as well. Now, we're going to see, maybe there's some other little predators walking around here. We're going to try our best, see what's around. But for now, let's send you on back to Steve, all the way back in South Africa, and see how he's getting along.
Welcome back to a very cloudy and overcast Sabi Sands, where the temperatures are relatively cool. And here we have myself and VM sitting at Buffelshoek Dam, and we've just got the ears of a strange little animal there. Apparently his name is Scuba Steve, and it is a very large hippo who is submerged in the water, only putting his ears and his nose out periodically as he submerges once again, because as I said, folks, it is quite cold out here, and if you are wet and the wind is rushing over your body, you need some form of windbreaker or some form of protection. And we thought maybe, come to the dam, see if we can pick up on any animals. Easy animals to find are hippos, because where are they going to be in the daytime? As you can see, in the water. Not very exciting, old Scuba Steve, but this is where he's at, and this is where we are at. There's some birds calling. I've had some red-bill oxpeckers, some brown-headed parrots. We had some starlings just in the tree here, as well as red-billed buffalo weavers. So the birding is starting to improve, but unfortunately we're not getting very good visual of them because they are hiding in the bushes. And on the left of us, we have a bush here with 2 birds that are sitting in it. There you can see that one with a little bit on the white on the wing. That is in fact one of the small 5. You can see the red beak, the black body, and the white sort of barring on the base of the wing there, that is a red-billed buffalo weaver, one of the small 5. And he is inside a knobthorn tree. I mentioned to you before that the birds aren't that active this time of day, well, when it's windy, because the predators are out there. So what a place to sit and preen and clean yourself than inside an impenetrable bush. The knobthorn with its very painful backward-facing thorns. Nice place to sit and do your morning ablutions. You see the turning of the head, the beak rubs up against the preen gland there, which is on the base of the tail. Gets oil all over the beak, which it then pushes through the feathers, almost redoing the zip. Feathers are made up of a whole lot of barbs that intertwine, and the birds will, every single morning and every afternoon, will go through and preen themselves and re-zip those feathers, which are very important for flight. They'll often do this, or will always do this, away from the nest, because you don't want to get your house dirty. No point in taking parasites and ticks and all sorts of dirt and dust off of your body in your bed. Those of you who have been to the beach before and not washed your feet before coming home, you know that that's not a great idea, to climb to bed with sandy feet. So they will always do this away from the nest. Obviously keeps the parasites down, but very, very, very hard work every day. The birds will do this. It's part of their morning routine. Some of us like to do yoga, stretch and have our coffee. These birds like to preen. So let me just quickly get a photo of the weaver. Katie, I believe your favorite bird is the red-billed hornbill and the pied kingfisher, both very, very common birds in the savannah area here, and both very beautiful. I agree, they are amazing birds. Let me just show you a picture. Here we go. There is an adult red-billed buffalo weaver. See the characteristic white wing bar there, a little bit of mottled white in the feathers, and then that red beak. Okay, let me give you another photo. There we go, better example of that red beak. And I wonder, VM, if you can scan across here to the trees, the tree here, pick up some of the nests there. What we have here, folks, is the nests of the red-billed buffalo weaver, and why we can identify it, because if you imagined a buffalo trying to weave a nest together, that is probably what it would look like. Those of you who've come across any of the other weaver species, their nests are very intricately woven, whereas these are a messy jumble of sticks, but for the purpose of not just breeding, but for roosting. So you can have up to 1 or 2 different breeding males in a nest with 3, 4, maybe even 6 females per male, obviously depending on the size of the nest and the longevity of the birds. But these guys, you noticed, I don't know if you noticed there, but the position of the nests are quite a good indicator of direction, and this is probably something you've heard countless times in the bush, but as a guide it's very important to understand direction. And the position of these nests in the tree is primarily on the one side of the tree there, and so by finding that, you can almost 100% guarantee that those nests are facing in a north-northwestern direction. And the reason being, some people say its prevailing wind direction comes from the opposite side. A lot of people agree with the fact that because the sun sets in the west and these birds live in those nests in the winter as well as the summer, they're looking for that afternoon sun just to warm that nest up so that they can last a little bit longer into the night. So those are 2 quite common beliefs, but as a guide it's important to have a look, and if you find this entire tree dotted with nests around it, it's probably not your best example of direction, but when you find one like that, it can be quite useful. But a third compounding factor that can throw you off is the position of water. If there is water underneath nests, quite often the reflection of light off that water can be the reason or the direction that they are in. So useful to understand cues in the bush. Having a compass is also quite handy, but then having a look at a couple other things. Maybe we can pick up on those as we go along. But we're going to sit here a little bit longer, I think, with Scuba Steve, who has disappeared. He is very well submerged. So we don't have a visual of Scuba Steve there, and obviously being scuba, he is underwater and holding his breath for 6 minutes plus minus. James, your favorite bird is the Djuma. That is a phenomenal bird. I'll quickly pull one up on my phone here. The old name is Djuma. The new name is African Harrier Hawk. and these birds are extremely specialized. I'll throw a picture up here for you. There you can see probably a breeding male. The face has gone a little bit pink. If I go one more, there you can see that's the general color of the face. It's quite yellow, but when they get angry or they're breeding or they get excited, that face can go that little pink color there. I've seen it happen within moments of a fork-tailed drongo bombing it. But what's interesting to note is the very long wings. You can see them come all the way back here, and the feet with no feathers, and then that face. It's quite a narrow and long face. Now this bird is a nest raiding specialist. This bird has the ability to climb up a naked branch by holding on with its wings, and then it's able to stick that leg inside. And some people say it dislocates its ankle or its knee, but it's actually the ankle itself that twists. But whether it's dislocating or it's able to move in different directions is something of a debate. But it's able to physically hold onto the tree and go into those nest cavities of hornbills if they haven't sealed it up, but of all the many nesting birds. For example, your red-billed buffalo weaver, it can probably get its foot into those nests there. Its beak is also able to push into small crevices. So it has got an absolute specialized niche in the fact that it's probably the only bird species I know of that is very successful in raiding birds' nests. Whole nests, cavity nests, nests on the ground, or should I say tree nests, or the cup or bowl-shaped nests. It's a very specialized bird, and it's got this very characteristic sort of low flapping glide, which is why it's called a harrier. And some literature out there indicates that the bird actually deliberately flies like that so as to attract the nesting birds, to attract the fork-tailed drongos, to attract the adults who then bomb it, and then it has an awareness of where that nest is. Whether that's true or not, it's debatable, but you do see them being bombed and chased all the time, and they will often then perch afterwards. Okay. So we're going to stick here a little bit longer with Scuba Steve. Maybe he'll give us some more action. Wind like this and temperature like this, I doubt we're going to get any animal movement down to the water this early. But we're going to link back to Tristan, see if he's got an update for you that side, and we'll catch up with you shortly.
Well, Steve squared at Buffelshoek Dam should be, hopefully our Steve will not be like Scuba Steve and just disappear on us and hide away at important times. Now we are having, well, what can only be described as a frustrating and rather irritating morning, to be honest. It's not really going according to plan at all, and I'll tell you why. We found tracks of Hosanna. He was on Chitwa and he crossed over probably about 10 minutes before we could even get anywhere near him, and he went into Little Gowrie and then south into Wessels. We then found tracks for wild dogs. Those tracks have led us all the way along Chitwa, through Chitwa, and along down towards the cut line, and they were found just on the other side of the cut line as we were getting into that area. So that's frustrating. And then there's two cheetah brothers that are also just on Nkoro, just outside of Chitwa area too. So everything is around us, wild dog, cheetah and leopard, but we can't really access any of them at this stage, and they've all kind of teased us by giving us their tracks and then just disappearing. We also found tracks for Tingana. He must have met up with Hosanna at some point last night, because they were at the same pan that Hosanna was at, and then they just shift off and they both separated. So Hosanna went southwards and Tingana seems to have gone east into Nkoro and Cheetah Plains. So all of the sort of prospects that we had for the morning have all kind of just dissipated in front of us, which is not really ideal. So now I'm just trying to kind of work around Chitwa and just see, maybe, you never know, Kuchava might be around, or you get a Tamba or Tingana. You never know where they've all gone. We know Tingana can do massive loops, and in weather like this it would be very easy for him to be able to loop back around Cheetah Plains and come back into this area. So that's why I'm just having a little look at this section and to see what is going on. Also, you never know, like I say, with Kuchava, she seems to pop out at random points as well, and I don't actually know where she's been last seen, so I'm just going on a whim that she might be around and just checking in this area and to see where she could be, and maybe she pops out, like I say, for us. But while we kind of try and figure out what we're going to do next and hope that some of the animals decide to actually turn and come our way for once this morning, let's head all the way up back to the Masai Mara with Ralph, who I believe has got some cute fluffy little felines to show all of you.
Thanks, Tristan. Yeah, and it seems like it's a little bit slow in Djuma, but here in the Mara Reserve, look what we've been able to find. It's a female lioness with some lovely little cubs, and they were all having a little squabble a minute ago because they were all trying to drink at the same time from mum, but there obviously wasn't enough space for all of them, so there was a little bit of a tiff, but they seem to have sorted it out now, and I think the one that didn't get any is now having his fill, so it's all good and it's all well here in this little lager where we've managed to find a lion pride. We're still trying to work out if we can see the dynamics of this group so that we can possibly get closer to understanding which pride it is. There's a mommy with some little cubbies, and then over off to the side there's a couple more females, and they're all lying up quite relaxed and enjoying the morning coolness. And sorry about those leaves in between. We will reposition in a little while, but we just got the best view through the croton leaves of the babies and the little cubs with mom first. And there's another individual there, and I was chatting with Manu now because I'm inclined to believe that these lions here on this side of the Mara River, for me, look better built and more muscular than the ones in the Mara Triangle, and maybe it's as a result of those ones in the Mara Triangle doing a lot of warthog hunting, if anything, and maybe these ones are taking on a little bit bigger prey. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. Just what I've observed is these females seem a lot more muscular than the ones on the other side of the river, and I don't know if it's down to these ones having to work a bit harder for their food or choosing to take on bigger prey. Maybe that's more fitting, but nevertheless they both sides of the river, the lions seem to be doing very well, and they're all well fed, all look in fantastic condition. The only predator that I've seen not in brilliant condition was this little jackal. And that little jackal with the mange that we saw this morning near to the vultures, and he ran off before we could get him on the video. But folks, I think we're going to be sitting here for the next while, so when you come back we might just have repositioned and get a better view of these other females, but in the meantime let's send you on down south to Steve, who I think has got one of those magical fishermen.
Welcome back, folks. We've got you another beautiful bird. This one is the woodland kingfisher. It's not easy to identify male and female apart, but we were talking earlier about migratory birds. And this bird is what we call an intra-African migrant that comes from sort of North Africa but south of the Sahara, and it comes here to breed. It flies all the way at night. And we were talking about navigation a moment ago, and these birds use all sorts of weird and wonderful cues for navigating. Some believe there's some form of internal compass that they have. Some believe they follow natural sort of landmarks. Some believe that they look at the stars and are able to navigate just like we did to find America and Australia through star navigation. All very, very interesting. I don't think anyone's ever done an actual survey on the bird, like ask them the questions, how do they navigate, but it is quite interesting how these birds are able to move all the way through a continent, and doing that at night must be quite insane. So you can identify this as the woodland kingfisher. You see that the bottom of the beak is black and the top is red. A little bit of a mask on the eye there. Can't mistake this for another species. And they are cavity nesters, very similar to that of the brown-hooded kingfisher, and these guys will arrive at night and they'll start calling, making a lot of noise. Ooh, he almost gave us one there. There we go, a little ruffle of the feathers. He's probably just woken up. these guys are generally the first birds to wake up in the morning, and you can tell birds, the vision of birds, by the fact of which bird calls first. You're not going to give away your position hiding in the bushes there by calling if you can't see. And often it's the insect-eating birds that are first to wake up, first ones to start calling, and the purpose of the calling, for those of you who are not familiar, is to advertise their presence. What happens to a bird at night? During the day, there's lots of predatory risks, and at night those risks go up. This bird will just be perched in a tree, and off he goes. Will just be perched in a tree, and a cat like a genet or a snake, something like that, might come along and eat either the adult or the female, the male or female, and a lot of fatalities can happen at night. So as soon as they wake up in the morning, they call and they let the rest of the woodland kingfishers know that they're still alive, they haven't been eaten, and this is their territory for the morning. And the purpose of them coming all the way down south, demarcating a territory, is to allocate a certain amount of food resource for them in an area that will be suitable enough for them to feed themselves and rear the chick. And they are very vocal and very aggressive birds, and they move in, they make a lot of noise, and if you've heard them before, I can hear them in the background. They are extremely noisy. What have we got there, Via? Oh, there he is. There you can just see the back. And this is how they hunt. They'll perch on a branch and they're looking out. There's the couple, and they're looking out for any insects that are moving around in the grass. Matthew, your comment that they remind you of kookaburras, the beak, the shape of the body does look very similar to a kookaburra. I do believe there is some genetic or some family lineage behind the two birds, but in essence they are very different species. But yes, indeed, they do look quite similar to kookaburra, quite a bit smaller as well. And also, like a kookaburra, the noise can be quite irritating after a period of time. We're always quite excited for them to arrive back, and often guides in the industry will have bets on the date. This year I didn't actually bet any money, but I had my money on the 18th of November, and that's the first day that I saw one, and the first day that they'd arrive back, so that is always interesting. And those are what scientists are moving with today. They're working on the dates of arrival of these birds, and they are using birds as a measure of climate change, because birds are able to move from one area to another, so the amount of species that are moving and the dates and times that they are leaving and arriving are very important, and scientists are putting that together into publications now. Obviously, global warming can be measured on if a bird's not leaving because the temperatures are still suitable and there's still food around. Something is not the way it used to be before, and so they are arriving later, they're leaving Europe, for example, later, they are arriving in South Africa later, and then vice versa, they're leaving South Africa later. So these are things that are coming up in science now, and it's important to watch the space because there could be some interesting revelations coming forward. For those of you who don't believe in climate change, it is a debate and a discussion, and we'll keep the discussion going as long as we want to. But we'll be carrying on now. We've lost our woodland kingfisher, so there's another bird for some of you out there who haven't seen it before. We're going to continue on this way. After the rain, there's been, obviously the ground is very hard. We haven't managed to find any tracks. It is very, very difficult going with regards to tracking this morning, but we might just be lucky. So we're going to continue on. Ralph with some lions in the Mara. Enjoy that sighting.
And look at this, everybody. Lovely little youngster there. He's just been staring over the back of Mom, and with a full belly now, probably with milk, he's just dozing off. And so it's a very cute little scene, this, with Mommy and the cubs, and we wouldn't pass up the opportunity just to sit with lions a little bit. I know they are sleeping for the time being, and it's the potential is that they could continue as such for the remainder of the day. Remember how long lions sleep? They can sleep up to 20 hours a day. Very similar to your domestic cat at home. If you watch your little kitty cat, you will see how much they sleep. Normally 3/4 of the day at least, and much part of the night as well. But they've obviously got themselves in a nice position food-wise, and they seem to have all be very content. So the youngsters obviously feeding on milk from mommy, and the adults all having a snooze as well. A very nice spot this in a little drainage line with a lot of croton bushes and a very nice shade, and it's nice and cool this morning, so very comfortable, and I'm sure they're quite happy to have this temperature. You can see their breathing is very flat. It's not fast at all, so they could be going into a very deep sleep here. As you can see, the inhalations versus exhalations is very slow. Remember yesterday when we saw Hodari after he had made his kill, I mean, he was hyperventilating there. We have a little bit of movement, the youngsters climbing on top of each other, and but very nice to still see the lions in the early morning like this. We will be moving on sooner or later, and we'll see if we can go and find some active cats, but at least we've been able to find this group. We know where they are now. It's the second group of lions that I've found. The first group, we were down in a very big valley, and there wasn't any signal. So we didn't have a look at them for too long. Then we saw that male lion yesterday morning. Steve, you're wondering how many cubs there are at the moment. We've counted at least 4, but I think there might be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's 5. And Manu said that he thinks that he's come across this pride previously with Taylor down the same drainage line, and if it was in this particular area it would make sense that it's the same group, but he thinks that he saw them when these cubs were quite a lot younger. But we're still trying to work out who it is. A little bit difficult when they're in the thickets like this. It seems like there's 3 females and then these cubs. There might be some more dotted in the thicket here, but that's what we're able to see at the moment. So once again, please everybody, send through your comments and your questions wherever you are in the world, and you can get involved with us here on this live game drive with Safari Live. We're just trying to see if there is going to be any more movement, which we're thinking is not going to be happening anytime soon. So I'm pretty sure we will move off. Not too long, but it's still nice and fresh this morning. The sun is getting up a little bit, but it's still very cool and nice to be around at this time of day. I think for everyone, not only us, the cats, the predators, the herbivores, everybody is quite comfortable. The gazelle topi youngsters have been running around like they do when it's very cool in the early morning. Alright, so as we see them moving a little bit there in the thickets, I think we are going to move on shortly, folks, and see what else we can find. And in the meantime, let's send you on over to Taylor and see how she's getting along.
Rain today, so perhaps have to enjoy the scenery that the book has to offer. Now, I'm driving in an area that I've never driven before, which is really cool because I love exploring. I just hope that the gremlins are not around here. For all of them, trees. Well, well, they're around, but you just don't see lots of pockets of them, and they're all over here, which is amazing. It must have something to do with the soil type that's around, but look how gorgeous they are. I also hope no cars coming. There were lots of cars coming in this direction, so I wonder what's down here. But it's a stunning tree, don't you think? And there's quite a bit of fruit forming on a lot of the trees. I even saw Balanitis aegypticus that had some fruit too. Not quite ripe just yet, and I hadn't seen any the elephants pushing it around and knocking it down. Now, the elephants are doing that. They don't like to feed on the sausage tree fruits, but there are lots and lots of animals out here that'll eat it. Porcupines, you'll see baboons chewing it, and then my absolute favorite was during the dry season in the Lower Zambezi National Park, and you'd hear one snap and fall to the ground, and you would literally hear stampeding hippos all rushing out of the water to collect the sausage fruit. So hippos like to eat this fruit too. It was really cool to see. It's very harsh down there. There's not a lot of food around during the dry months, so this will provide some sustenance. But you wouldn't want to be bopped on the head. Now, Archie, luckily we have a roof, so if one does fall, it shouldn't conk us on the head. Might make a dent on the hood of the car if it hits the hood of the car, but let's take the gamble. So don't sleep under one of these trees. That wouldn't be a very good idea. And it's funny because lions often like to use these trees. They're a great shaded tree. Not a good one to have around your pool though, because they lose their leaves. My dad wouldn't like them very much. Right. Sounds like Tristan down in South Africa has got a very interesting bird, a bird that I have not seen for a few weeks. Let's go and see what it is.
Well, I do, Taylor. I've got a very, very, very interesting bird in the back right there. It's an open-billed stork. I haven't seen one of these in months. I don't remember actually the last time I even saw one. And you can see that it is busy at the moment trying to dismantle something. I can't see exactly what it is. It looks like it could be a freshwater mussel, an absolutely massive freshwater mussel if it is one. And these guys do target those quite a bit, and you'll see them going after it. At first I thought it might be a terrapin shell, but it doesn't look like a terrapin from here. It's difficult to see, but you'll find that they use this massive beak with these kind of pincers in the middle, and they'll try and pick up those freshwater mussels, and then they sort of leverage the shell open, and then they're able to get to the meat on the inside. That's what it looks like. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. It's so far away. There we go. You see it got whatever was inside there out. So I'm not sure what it is exactly. Let's see if it picks it up again for us. Doesn't seem like it's doing it. Nope. I think it got the mussel out. Maybe not. Let's see. It's picking it up again, I think. It's just taking it into water where I can't see exactly what it is. It's really tough, but it does look like a mussel shell, doesn't it? Yes, it does look like a mussel shell, and so it's obviously broken open that mussel shell and been able to get into it. These guys in the yellow-billed storks absolutely love those freshwater mussels, and you'll see them going after it quite a bit. Now, it's called an open-billed stork because hopefully it will show us from the side, but you see there that its beak doesn't actually close properly, so as it comes down, the tip is curved upwards on the bottom and curved downwards on the top, and so as those touch together, it means that there's a slight little gap that is between the bottom mandible and the top mandible, and that's why you get that little open stork, or open bill, as its name suggests. But it definitely looks like a little freshwater mussel that it's got there. How cool is this? It's been a long, long time since I've seen one, and actually to see them feeding like this is really very cool. It's amazing to watch how they use that beak. You see how they just kind of pry it along the edge, and they sort of slowly but surely crack it open, much like we would use a sort of oyster knife if you were going to feed off oysters, and you sort of leverage it open. And it's the same thing with this beak, and then they're able to get to that flesh on the inside. Absolutely amazing to see. Very cool. Now, the other bird that was there that you saw is a great white egret that is busy fishing as well, and it's amazing to watch these birds. There we go. All done. So it doesn't seem to be grabbing big fish at the moment. It seems to be targeting tiny little ones, because every now and then I see it picking up these small little fish. They're very, very little, not big at all, and that's what it's kind of targeting. And I think it's also going after little baby frogs. They do like frogs, these great white egrets, and so there'll be a number of small frogs after the rain, I'm sure, that are drifting about, and especially in this wind, they probably have a situation where there's some hippo action as well. So they were coming out and have decided to plonk themselves back down. Maybe they realized it's far too windy to be out and about and messing around on the shore. But these little ones, like I was saying, they'll be picking up any of the frogs that are floating around and on the sort of surface of the water. Now, David, you say you've never seen an open-billed stork before, and that's number 45 on your list. Well, it's been a long time, David. I can't actually remember the last time I even heard of any of us seeing an open-billed stork. I certainly have not seen one in months, and so they're not a common bird for us to see here, although in the Kruger Park area, there you go, you can see its beak now that it's closed and not feeding, that little sort of gap in between is where it gets its name. But you see them a lot in the Kruger along the river section. So if you go anywhere, the Sabi River, Sand River, Letaba River, Olifants River, quite a few of them along there where they feed off all of these sort of crustaceans and things that they can find. Let's see, has it found something else again? There we go. So they are definitely mussels that are on the edge of the water, and they're massive. These are really big for freshwater mussels, so it's no wonder it's here. Oh, there we go. Got to get the legs wide apart when leveraging them. This is so cool to see. I haven't seen these guys feeding off mussels in so long. I can't even tell you. That is very cool. Now, where are you carrying it off to? It's obviously got a little favorite feeding spot, and there's the heron in the foreground that's probably a bit jealous given that it doesn't have the beak shape to pry those open, so that's not a food source it can go after. It's got to try and rely on its eyesight and the stabbing motion of that long beak to be able to get things like fish. So it's amazing to see the two different sort of beak shapes and how that then helps when it comes to feeding behavior. Very cool. But you can see, look at how sort of alert it is it goes slowly, looking, and when it finds something that it's interested in, that's when that neck will come right in and then it sort of stabs out. But let's see what it does now with the stork, because it's going straight towards where the stork is feeding. Maybe it's, oh no, stork is being chased by lapwings, and everyone is settling down again. I think the stork managed to fly with its mussel. I think it's in the beak. There we go. It is still there. So well done, you managed to keep it. But those mussels are huge. They're some of the biggest I've seen. Now, the two birds in the background, for those of you that are birders, are water thickneys and blacksmith lapwing. So the blacksmith lapwing, the black and grey and white bird, and then the more drab coloured bird is those water thickneys. And you can see the white stripe on their wing that differentiates them from the spotted thickney. But let's see if our stork starts to feed again. It's very attached to this mussel at the moment. It seems as though it's trying to kind of make sure that nobody else steals it. There we go. You're going to start feeding again. There we go. Look, see how that beak goes in there? How cool is that? This is so cool. And you see it hooks it in, and then it basically is trying to just leverage all of that out and open and trying to get to what's inside. But like I say, it's not common to see this. I mean, you see them feeding off it, but it's generally quite far away, and you don't really get a nice close view. But this stork is giving us a really good view of how they go about cracking mussel shells open and getting to the flesh on the inside. There we go. Come on, you're almost there. And there must be quite a bit of power in that beak as well. I mean, it's not a small bird by any stretch of the imagination. These guys are fairly large, and that beak is big. So I'd imagine there's quite a lot of power that is in that beak itself. And they would be able to then try and apply quite a bit of force in order to open that. I mean, like I say, if you've ever tried to shuck an oyster, you'll know that it's not an exactly sort of easy task. It takes a bit of time and a bit of force to actually get them open. So it would be the same with these guys. There's some force that is needed. There you go, you see it opened? There you go, there it is. How cool is that? You see how much meat comes out of that? You're wondering if people can eat those mussels. I don't think so. I've never heard of anyone eating them. I certainly wouldn't. I don't think. I mean, some of them grow in areas that unfortunately is quite polluted, and I mean, here I suppose theoretically this water would be fine, but I just have never heard of anyone actually feeding off them. But you can see how much meat it is, and for a stork, a few of those in a day, and these guys are going to be doing just fine. They'll be really nice and full and happy. But I think that's finished now. It seems as though it got pretty much everything out of it. So I think it's just getting the last little specks out. But that was so cool to see. To watch it kind of actually get it open and to see how much flesh is inside there is pretty incredible. Wow, that was very cool. Not every day you get to see that, that's for sure. I quite enjoyed that actually. And seems as though not really too much else is happening at Chitwa Dam. I was hoping that there might be a few other birds. When you get sort of cold weather like this, often you'll find that there are a few sort of birds that get blown in, particularly if this front system comes in from the Madagascar Channel. Then you sometimes get some strange birds that arrive, but it seems as though there isn't too much else other than our interesting open-billed stork. But that was fantastic. I want to go around a little bit forward and just see, there's often little birds that kind of shelter in these little coves, and see if anything's happening on that side while I'm just trying to sit patiently. I'm hoping that the wild dogs or Hosanna or these two cheetah or apparently a big pride of lions that is all around us comes onto Chitwa. They're kind of all flirting with the boundaries, but none of them are actually coming this way. They seem to all be kind of going the other way, but let's see, maybe we get lucky. The dogs are probably our best bet, given that their directions are always so random, and so you never know with them. They can go east, north, south, west of 2 seconds. So we'll try and see if maybe they come our way, and while we do that, I believe Ralph, who's having a wonderful time in the Mara, and I believe has found himself a spotted cat that seems as though it is eyeing out a spot for the morning.
Okay, everybody, it was very exciting. We've got an individual cheetah here that is hunting, and I've been racing across the plains, losing all my hat and all my gear and everything while we've been trying to get into position, and this cheetah has scared everybody off on the plain and then proceeded just to lie down in the grass. I think that might be because he's given himself away, and now he's just waiting a little bit that everybody calms down. There we go. We've got some movement again. We've got a couple of them, and we just spotted them from quite a distance, and we raced over because we could see that they were on the move, and they spotted a gazelle, but the gazelle seemed to have spotted them soon enough that it bounded through the grass and disappeared off. And so we now are just waiting and seeing how this plays out. But cheetah on the move means business for us. And look at that! What was that? That almost seemed like it got a fright. I don't know what that was. Something almost seemed to bomb it. I don't know if it ran out the bushes or what. I'd like to see that in slow motion. I don't know what frightened that cheetah like that. I thought he was after something, and then I saw that he actually got a fright. Oh, wow, it's been very exciting. Sometimes it can be a slow morning, and then all of a sudden everything starts happening all at once. And so we just have to keep on keeping on and keep moving through the bush and just being patient, because eventually it always pays off. And now he's sitting in the middle of the plain and all the animals watching. So we are just going to wait and see what happens here. And folks, just so that you know, I will be prepping everybody just to go onto an action broadcast if this turns into something a little bit more exciting. If this cheetah gets going on the hunt, we're just going to watch and see. Just going to watch and see for the little while, because there he goes down again, and shame. If we did an action broadcast and all he did was lie down, it wouldn't be ideal. So it's always a tricky task trying to get it right when the action is just about to happen. But we'll keep trying and we'll keep being patient, because that is the key. And there we go, lying down again. But we're not going to go anywhere, because we've got a few cheetah now in the area. We've seen at least two, maybe there's more, maybe it's the musketeers, who knows. We haven't had enough time to even think about identifying the cheetah, because we've just got animals running everywhere. And Manu has just mentioned to me that he thinks it's a mother and son. He's had more time to look at the actual animals while I've been trying to race across the plains and catch up with them. So I'll go with his judgment, mother, son, and we'll just try and identify which ones exactly when we get a better look. But you see how the zebra also clump together when they know that there's a predator around. You very often find a lot of animals doing that. Now Stanley, you're wondering if a lone cheetah will ever go after a zebra. Yes, they will, Stanley. I'm just going to say Stanley from now on. They will go after a zebra, but generally younger zebra. And folks, I'm just going to move a little bit closer while I